Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in for this overview of the Chapter Awards program. Appreciate having Cindy Olson from the Tuscola Technology Center helping us with this presentation. Cindy has done the Chapter Awards for a number of years and will give you some insights into how it works. Before Cindy starts, I'd like to just add that I think participating in the chapter awards, besides the recognition for your students, it's the best way to make sure that your chapter is doing a well-rounded series of activities, not just looking at competition, but other activities that's going to help develop their skills, their students' professionalism, and interacting and building that excitement for the chapter. So with that, Cindy, thank you
Mhm.
for the presentation today.
Sure. Yes, so I couldn't agree more with what Dave just said. And in fact, we can go to that first slide there where it says why chapter awards. That I really enjoy the aspect of the community service and being able to, partner with kids on those types of activities. And it really does establish a program of work because what happens, and we'll take a look at the sheet that lays it all out, that there's 6 different sections of things like community service and academic achievement, where the students are going to select different activities. And so it helps them to come up with some things that could help them to support the communities and their chapter. And then the other thing about it is it can be used as a future promotional tool because now that we've done it for a number of years, we have the binders still that show everything that we did. And then it works out nicely too if you want to go back and, want to repeat some of those things that you're able to do that. And then it certainly adds to the opportunity to us to attend states and also the international competition. I did notice, though, however, last year that there were some teams that didn't advance, but I think that's fine because it should be somewhat competitive, meaning that it has to be formatted correctly. And all of the sections need to be put together in a certain way that we'll talk about in a little bit. And in fact, projects must have at least 75 points after any penalty points if it's going to advance on to the international competition. And then all of that information can be found online at Michigan DECA that gets into the little nitty gritty details as far as format. So I believe I'm ready for the next slide, Dave. And then in my opinion, it wouldn't make sense not to go up to the gold level. So there's a couple of different levels if you don't complete quite all of the activities, which means, flies all over the place here, which means 6 in each section. Because if you don't finish at least 6 in each section, then the students aren't going to be able to qualify for the national competition, or excuse me, international and also state. We did, though, one of the first couple years that we tried it, we had some students that started it and they weren't able to finish because it is quite a bit of work. But we were able to take a look at that the following year and go ahead and make a timeline and make sure that we hit that achievement. And also know that chapters must achieve at least one of the following qualifications to be eligible for the gold level. So in addition to doing the 6 activities in each 6 sections, they also either have to be 100% membership or they need to have 8 more for the 80th. And that's something that you include in your documentation. And then on the next page, I've got a picture of what this looks like. So if any of you have done any written projects before, that written projects also have a criteria that you must follow. And all of them have a cover page and a title of contents. So this works as your table of contents where the students write in all of the activities and the page numbers and the I believe also the date that they finished it. It's just a little small here on my end. And so there's no need to have an extra table of contents because this is going to serve as that. What I've done and what I recommend doing with this is have the students do the work first, and then you can go back and complete this table of contents or this overview form. And chapter awards is something that you're going to mail in. It's not something that you have to upload, and that's still that way, right, Dave?
That's correct because of all the
Yes.
photos.
Yes, because it's really quite a bit of work. It would be quite a lot to mail. But that makes this part a little bit easier, meaning that you can go back later and do your table of contents. But the other thing that I have the students do that helps us is I have them handwrite this section first, and that's how they decide what they're going to do. And I've got 2 students right now that are working on it, but certainly other students will help us to brainstorm, the ideas and to include them in the activities as well. On the next slide, I've got a little bit more detail about the format guidelines, because just like any other written project, that it needs to be formatted in a certain way for it to be able to be accepted for the state conference and then also the international conference. So some other things is that you're going to have the statement of assurances, just like you always would. I would still recommend that you go ahead and create a title page, and that can go in the front of the binder. The next 2 pages are the executive summary, and it's broken down into a project description and also a description of the chapter. And then you're going to get into the narrative, which means that you're going to be doing those 6 activities with 6 pages, 6 activities of written information. And then each one of those activities needs to have some documentation. And it's also really important that it's broken down in a certain way. So, for example, you need to have the goals of the activity, a summary, and sometimes students will get a little confused that they're not sure how a summary differs from completion. So what I tell them to do is think of a summary to just write like what it is in a way that if somebody had never read it or didn't know anything about it, they would understand. And then the completion is steps. So first we did this, next we did that. And then the last part is to do an evaluation. So they'll talk about what went well, maybe what they could do next time, and how they felt about it, maybe what they learned. And it's not necessarily a requirement, but as they do their formatting, I have them write goals, summary, completion, evaluation. And then that way, when an evaluator goes through, they're going to be able to very clearly see that they have all of those items. Also, each section needs to be separated by tabs. It must be mailed to Michigan DECA by February 17th. It may not exceed 105 total pages for the Gold Award, and that sounds like a lot. But if the students are going into additional pages, it could get a little longer. I recommend that the students try to keep it to 1 page of writing and 1 page of documentation, but sometimes they need to go a little deeper in the writing as long as it doesn't exceed that. And sheet protectors are optional. But I think that that just makes it look a little bit better. And that way, if it gets handled a lot and you want to use it years down the line for a promotional tool, it's going to stay in a good condition. And then your paging is also going to begin with the executive summary, and it ends with the last page, which is your bibliography, and that is a requirement. If you want to take a look at the next page, I've got an example of what one of these might look like. And so for me and for some of my students in the past, the hardest part of this really is first figuring out what activities you're going to do. And again, we usually do that in advance. So if you plan out the activities and then you get into the writing, that once we started to do that, we realized that it wasn't as much writing as it initially sounds like. Because if you've got 3 students, for example, working on it, and each of them kind of split that up, then that's about 12 pages of writing. And it's definitely doable, but you have to start very early. So this is what it looks like. that you can see that they've got the header at the top, and that's also a requirement. And again, I've had them break it down into those sections where the evaluator could clearly see that it had the goals, the summary, the completion, and also the evaluation. And then the next page, I have a goofy student with a picture. And some of the, or I think in my opinion, that's really important too, that documentation page. This probably wasn't the best one that I could have pulled up. So they certainly want to write on that. It's a documentation page, have a picture, and then they certainly want to have some type of information to display it underneath it. Everybody knows that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that really will help to back up what the students have done. So this was sort of short. This is really what I have right now at this point. I know that it looks like there's another advisor on here right now. Are there any questions that I could help with right now? No, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Cindy. Appreciate the overview, and it helped people get thinking about getting started with the program.
Okay, and I also just wanted to add that my students and I are also going to be doing a breakout session on this at the leadership event that's coming up, and we'll actually bring the copy from last year too. And I believe that when students can see what it looks like, it kind of takes some of the fear, out of it. And something that we're proud about, and we're excited that we've got ours in progress right now again this year too.
Look forward. I always like seeing those projects, so thank
Yeah,
you for doing that again.
you bet. All right.
I'll pause one more second. Atiba,
Okay.
any questions? Or
Okay.
if not, we'll end the recording, and thank you everyone for joining.
All right. Thanks. You guys have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.